Greetings everyone, this is Albert. This video will be the first in a series that I am titling Zeitgeist and Comparative Religion, and it is based on my book, This is the Sun, Zeitgeist and Religion, Volume 1, Comparative Religion. In the past I had partially completed a series on the same topic, but was unhappy with the results, and so I am replacing it with this series of presentations. For those who are interested in the book after viewing at least parts of the series, I am placing a link in the description box to Amazon.com where the book may be purchased in either the paperback or the Kindle format. The Kindle format, of course, is considerably less expensive. For those who do not own a Kindle device, I will also have a link at Amazon where you can download Kindle software and read Kindle books on your Mac or PC. Five years after Zeitgeist's release, it still amazes me that the errors contained in it, particularly concerning Christianity, still manage to find an audience. One might expect claims that Jesus was a pagan solar deity to gain traction among certain groups with an axe to grind, but its embrace by mainstream popular culture is quite remarkable. It also gives witness to the general acceptance of even the most baseless of conspiracy theories if it is accompanied by a slick visual presentation. With Zeitgeist, I have begun a 3-volume project examining the whole topic of Jesus mythicism in general and the ideas presented in Zeitgeist the movie in particular. This video series is a summary of the first volume and concerns the theory presented in Zeitgeist that is termed in the film as astrotheology, with other subjects in the study of comparative religion added as needed. The 2 future volumes will concern the so-called pagan parallels, where pre-Christian deities allegedly had remarkable parallels to the story of the life of Jesus, and the more general question in the 3rd volume will consider the existence of Jesus and the writing of the New Testament. My own experience with this topic goes back prior to the film's release. Many Christians are aware that some popular elements of current Christian celebrations may have pagan origins. Certainly, syncretism is an understood phenomenon, and particularly in areas that were Christianized the latest, existing elements of the prior religious system and culture were often absorbed. Yet this is something quite different from stating Christianity was from its inception a copycat religion of earlier pagan beliefs. My first contact with that idea came through an acquaintance who was a follower of various conspiracy theories in general and those of someone named Jordan Maxwell in particular. He provided me with copies of some VHS and audio tapes by Maxwell and others, and I was challenged to examine the evidence. After some investigation, I discovered it was based upon pseudo-scholarship from the 19th century that was itself derived from earlier esoteric mysticism. In other words, the entire thing was occultic nonsense from a bygone era. After this episode, I promptly forgot the whole thing and soon lost contact with the budding conspiracy theorist. Flash forward to a few years ago, and I was asked if I knew anything about a film titled Zeitgeist that had proved Jesus was a pagan solar metaphor. I knew nothing about it, but suspected it was more of the same nonsense I investigated years earlier. I found an online transcript for the film, noted its sources were largely the same 19th century occultists I had already dismissed, along with some newer sources that were dependent upon those 19th century occultists, and chuckled at their gullibility. I figured the whole thing would have a shelf life of about 2 weeks and would be quickly forgotten except perhaps by a small cult following. I could not have been more wrong. I continued to receive inquiries about the film and also heard some stories of Christians losing their faith over its contents. I finally decided to respond, but I first needed to at least see the object of my scorn. So one evening I put aside the time to view what was being hailed by some as the ultimate exposé of Christian origins. What I witnessed was not only as bad as the material I had earlier dismissed, but it took the whole nonsense of that earlier material to ridiculous heights. I should begin with a basic outline of the genesis of the film. Zeitgeist was the creation of independent musician and filmmaker Peter Joseph. Born Peter Joseph Marola to a middle-class North Carolina family, he was trained as a marimbist, that is, someone who plays marimba, and attended the North Carolina School of the Arts and later the Mann's Conservatory of Music in New York City. In 1997, he received an award in solo percussive performance from the National Endowment for the Arts. He continued to work in various freelance endeavors until his creation of the performance art piece Zeitgeist that he presented in 2007. He assembled the presentation as a film and uploaded it to the internet, where it immediately went viral and received millions of views. The basic theme of Zeitgeist is to reveal aspects of a system of thoughts and assumptions allegedly programming our lives. It is divided into 3 segments, the first on Christianity, the second on the 9/11 attacks, and the third on the Federal Reserve System and the federal government in general. It presents a world of shadowy forces, pulling the strings while we are the mere marionettes in their show. My thoughts as I watched it for the first time was that it was very slick presentation of the same material promoted by Jordan Maxwell. At this point, I had no reason to believe that Peter Joseph was dependent upon Maxwell's material, as they may well have used the same sources. He did use excerpts of Maxwell speaking, but this was nothing unusual, as Maxwell was probably the best-known proponent of such ideas, or at least the one that I knew the best. It was long after I had begun addressing the film that I came across an interview of Peter Joseph on the Jeff Rense Show, which is a conspiracy theorist radio program. In this interview, Joseph fully acknowledged the film was largely a walk through Maxwell's work and stated that Maxwell was, quote, the lifeblood of the piece. He made clear his admiration for Maxwell and how the latter had been his inspiration. For the benefit of those who have never heard this interview, I will now play the relevant portion.
Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you having me on, man.
How many documentaries have you produced before this one?
This is the first one, actually.
That's what I know. Now,
Okay.
when I started watching it, I have to admit that I immediately recognized Jordan Maxwell when I heard his voice, and he's been a friend for probably, I'll bet 14 years now, and one of the first people I had on the program when I started it, we're in our 14th year. And it was so good to hear Jordan. I know him very well. We've had so many hours on the program together. Not for many years, though. He's been a guest. It's been a long time. But when I heard him on there, he never sounded better, and it's just great. How did you get connected with Jordan Maxwell?
Well, actually, I've been studying Jordan for a long time. He's probably the lifeblood of the entire piece. What should be understood, though, is that the segments that are taken of Jordan are from his own productions. So basically, I've been trying to get in touch with him, frankly, for quite some time, and he's a very difficult man to get in touch with. He should be aware of this film by now, but he's actually, as far as I know, I don't know if he's even seen this project, even though I have physically sent it to. I sent it to him, but he never responded. He's apparently he's a kind of an elusive guy.
That's Jordan. No,
yeah.
you got it.
Yeah,
Oh, but believe me, he's aware of it. He's seen it, Peter. Believe me, he's a man. He doesn't miss much.
Right. But I've owed him a debt of gratitude because he is, as I said, the lifeblood of the piece. The piece basically kind of walks through his work in many different ways, from the first section to not as much the middle section, but he is very much outspoken about part 2. And the third section in regards to the corporation of the United States and just the way things have been operating and the takeovers. And was really proud how it actually worked out that I got to have him as sort of the central focal point, speech-wise, in each section.
True.
So I'm hoping to actually finally get in touch with him. I really love to talk to him.
Given the context of this interview, it is quite clear why the claims made in Zeitgeist the movie so resembled those that I had encountered years earlier in the material produced by Jordan Maxwell. Peter Joseph was a Jordan Maxwell fanboy. Now, I want to make very clear that I am not accusing Peter Joseph of plagiarism. He fully acknowledges that to Jordan Maxwell and gave him and later others who would assist him full credit for their work. It does, however, raise the question of Peter Joseph's judgment, as Maxwell is hardly a reliable source. In fact, in the years since the film's initial release on the web, you will find Peter Joseph mentioning Jordan Maxwell's influence less and less, as even those who support many of the ideas given in the film have rejected many of Maxwell's claims. At a later point, Peter Joseph would call upon the services of D.M. Murdoch, also known as Acharya S., in editing the final cut version of Zeitgeist the movie. Thus, while it is Murdoch who is most often associated with the material in part 1 of Zeitgeist, it is actually Jordan Maxwell who was the film's inspiration. Murdoch's later influence can also be seen in the removal of the original transcript from the film's website, although it can still be found elsewhere on the web, with a new source guide produced by Joseph and Murdoch, although undoubtedly guided by the latter, put in its place. Here the old sources are replaced by new ones to give more of an air of respectability, but as we shall see later in the series, a closer examination proves it only presents an ability to give misleading citations. When Zeitgeist was released, many Christian apologists dismissed it as not worthy of a response. This was a mistake, for as the Da Vinci Code proved, even nonsensical claims about Jesus are capable of organically generating their own support, so long as the end product is somewhat entertaining. Given some time and the film's growing popularity, more apologists entered the fray, but not all of these efforts were helpful. In many cases, those responding never studied the issues involved and had little of substance to offer. Even worse, others countered Zeitgeist conspiracy theory fire with paranoia of their own and treated observers to the unseemly spectacle of Zeitgeist supporters and Christian apologists characterizing each other as the dupes of some unseen Illuminati force. Both sides of this pointless exchange reflect the same conspiratorial mindset overtaking popular discourse. So, what shall we make of the challenge of Zeitgeist the movie, and why should Christians even bother knowing how to respond to its claims? Well, put yourself in the place of an average church-going Christian who had never heard of the film and has little background in the history of religion. One day you were told all you believe about Jesus is a lie. The virgin birth, magi, baptism in the Jordan, 12 disciples, crucifixion, death, resurrection, and ascension, all of it never happened. There's certainly no hope of eternal glory in Christ. But so far, this is not a great shock, as you probably already know atheists exist, but you thought you had heard all the arguments. But then, you were told Christianity is nothing more than an astrological metaphor, with Jesus as the sun and his disciples as the 12 signs of the zodiac. the events of his life correspond to events in the solar cycle. Furthermore, the historicized Christianity known to you was imposed by nefarious characters to control the masses. These men, potentates and priests of every kind, have used this lie to their advantage. You are told this is nothing new, as the pagan beliefs Christianity replaced did the same thing. It all goes back to when kings and priests first used religion to accumulate power and authority. Jesus was nothing more than an updated version of Egypt's Horus, right down to the nativity story written on the walls of Luxor Temple. Maybe you heard this from a coworker over the water cooler. Perhaps your son or daughter returned from college with her faith gone, and a video titled Zeitgeist given as the reason for their recent apostasy. However it happened, you were asked to view the video, you reluctantly agree, and by the end of the first part, your world has been turned upside down. How do you answer these charges? Where did this stuff come from anyway? Your initial reaction is to dismiss it, but you really can't give a solid reason. You never heard anything like this before. What if there is something to it? Why didn't someone tell you? Your doubts linger and you wonder, what if all of this is really a lie after all? This is the challenge Zeitgeist presents. While those familiar with the source material may chuckle at its errors and inconsistencies, most sincere Christians simply do not possess the background necessary to counter the claims in the film. I'm hoping to help bridge that gap. I do not expect the opinions of those supporting it to be instantly swayed. I suspect many of them are unaware their claims are rejected by scholars and the reason for such rejections. Some may eventually concede it is nonsense, but others will grasp at any available straws. Instead, I have aimed at Christians troubled by these claims and those for whom these claims are a stumbling block to their own acceptance of Christianity. Even though this is given from a Christian perspective, the data is factual and backed up by current scholarship. All sources for all the claims made in this video series are in fact given in the book. Please keep in mind, this video series is merely an overview of the book, which goes into far more detail, provides all the scholarly references, and covers some topics not addressed in the video series. Also, keep in mind the subject of this video series and the book is astrotheology, subjects such as the zodiac, procession, the dates of Christmas and Easter, and not pagan parallels. The latter will be addressed in Volume 2 of the book and its accompanying video series. Thank you very much for your time.